Hi guys, it's Father Doug again. I want to talk to you this week about getting dirty and being made clean, getting cleaned up. So the question off the top, have you ever been dirty? Have you ever gotten dirty? No, I don't believe you if you say no, I haven't, because we all get dirty sometimes. Well, how do you get dirty? Well, you might be playing in the dirt. You might be working at something that's quite dirty. A lot of dust, a lot of grit, a lot of film, a lot of sawdust, who knows what. You might be playing sports or running around where you get sweaty. You get kind of messed up that way. That's a different kind of dirty. You might even be working in the kitchen where sometimes it gets hot and sweaty, but you might just be getting stuff all over yourself. You know, from the vegetables you're cutting up, peelings and things, or if you're baking, the flour and such. Well, it's not really dirt. But in order to go and do something else, you get cleaned up first. Often it's what you're doing. You yourself get dirty. Sometimes you get dirty because of what other people have done to you. You know, they splashed you with things, or they dumped stuff on top of you. One way or the other, you come back into the house or you go into the dining room and your mom says, "Whoa, you're not coming in here like that. Oh, don't you touch anything. Not until you've gotten those hands washed. You go and get cleaned up before you come back here." And so you go and you get washed up. How? Well, maybe you wash with soap and water in the sink. You wash your hands. Maybe you have to wash your arms a little bit. Maybe your face as well, maybe back behind your ears, back to the neck. If you really need a good washing, maybe you need a whole bath or a shower. Maybe you need to put on clean clothes. But get yourself cleaned up so you look better, you smell better before you come in, whether it's for supper or dinner of some sort, whether it's to go to church, whether it's to sit in the living room sometimes on the clean furniture. But you get cleaned up, but that's on the outside. We all go through that from time to time. Back in Jesus' day, they also did ritual washings. Now, rituals are the services, the sacrifices, the feasts, the things that we do as part of our faith often. There can be other organizations, too, that have rituals, have things that they go through that way. But before the Jewish people would participate, take part in different feasts, different rituals of their faith. They would go through washings, hand washings. They would get prepared. Now, in our Mass, you might recall that the priest, when he's getting ready to bless the bread and wine for that consecration, that he goes through what we call the lavabo. That is, that he washes his hands. It's a ceremonial washing, usually. And at the end of the Mass, when he's finished with the vessels, so the paten and the chalice, well then he does the ablutions afterwards, and there's a washing of them. Now that's not the final cleaning up, because they'll be cleaned up in the sacristy afterwards. But it's a ritual washing. And Jesus said that a lot of the people were much more concerned with the outward washings, how they looked outside. But what they really needed to be concerned about was what was inside. What's inside? Well, the heart. How can we get dirty inside? Well, it's the bad thoughts, the bad feelings, the things that go on in there. The anger, the hatred, the bitterness, the lust and greed. That means when we really want something, we want it now, and we want it for ourselves. There can be fears and anxieties. There can be all kinds of mess that is in there. And some of it is bad things that we do or we think or we say that get us in that state. Things that we've been watching, that we've been listening to, that we've been doing, that get things dirty in here. Some of it, like out there in the world, is stuff that's happened to us, that other people have done to us, that have made us angry, afraid, whatever. We need to remember sometimes that what we feel is not by itself bad. If you get angry, St. Paul actually writes to the Ephesians that you can be angry, but don't sin. There's some things that should make us angry. When somebody's being hurt, we should be angry that the person's being hurt and want to help. But when we start trying to hurt other people, or we get angry inside and we start to hurt ourselves, then it turns into a sin, and it's a bad thing. We need to deal with that. But frankly, even all the bad feelings, the fears, the anxieties, things that other people have done to us, all of that mixture needs to be cleaned up as we go along. Why does it need to be cleaned? Well, because we don't function really well. Our bodies don't work right. Our souls don't work right if things are not in good order inside and in the heart. The heart is what kind of runs us. Decides what's important, tells us what we really love, the things that we need to be doing. It's the heart that moves us that way, that helps us to think about who we are and to feel God's love and to love others. If you have a car, we all have cars probably in the family, or we know what cars are. They have inside an engine. And the engine, in order to work well, needs to be in good shape. Yes, it needs gasoline, well, this is an electric car, but it needs fuel to run on. But inside, it's got oil. And oil is something that helps the moving parts to work, whatever kind of fuel it uses otherwise. The oil goes in and it goes between the parts so that they move smoothly together. I don't know if you've seen oil before. You've probably seen some kinds of oil. Vegetable oil has a sort of yellowish color, an amber color, they say. Well, motor oil, the oil that goes into an engine, it has that kind of color too. It's clear, you can kind of see through it when it goes in. When it's new and fresh, it makes things work really smoothly. But as it's been running for a while and it begins to get dirty, and things that are around it, dirt and grit and things get in, and it's just been working really hard through the machinery, it starts to get darker and darker. When we see oil that's been in there for months, it often looks really black instead of kind of yellowish. Well, the darker it gets, the more sludgy it gets, the less things move smoothly and the more they kind of work hard to get over things. And when it gets really bad, they start to scrape on each other. And then it can be a real mess. Your car could start to pour out smoke and smell and make funny noises and things. Well, some of your parents might know more about cars than I do, and they might say, well, what is he talking about? But don't worry about it. If the engine isn't in good working order, you get problems and it doesn't drive well, and eventually it dies. Well, in our bodies, we need to look after our bodies. That's our physical health. We also need to look after our spirits and the state of our hearts. And that's where we need to clean up these things that are there. All these bad thoughts and feelings and things, the sins that are there. But what do we do? How do we get clean? Can we just take some dishwashing liquid and pour it down there, some of the soap, and then pour in a bunch of water and shake ourselves up and see if we can't slosh it about and get things clean, and then the bubbles come out of our mouths and our noses and our ears maybe? Well, no. And please don't try it. Don't try it. It's not a good idea. You don't want soap in your mouth. Trust me. Well, how do we get clean inside then from the things that are going on in our hearts? We open them up to God. We invite Him to come in and do work with us. Where there are sins, where there are things that we've done that are wrong, we confess the sins. We tell Him what they were, and we ask Him to forgive us. We tell Him that we know that they're wrong. So that's where there is sin. But even places where it's just kind of messed up, things that weren't really our fault, we still invite Him in to heal us. One of the ways that we get things clean is by bringing in light so we can see where things are dirty. We bring in the light of His Spirit so that He can do that healing work, that cleaning work in us. He actually talks at one point about His Spirit being like living waters poured through us to refresh us. So you can think about being washed out. So we can do that in confession. We can do that in our prayers as we open up our lives to God. and invite him to come in, to speak his words of healing to us, to be with us. You know, he stands beyond all things, beyond all space and all time. So even memories that hurt us, things that we remember that make us feel bad, we can ask him to be with us and to bring healing in those areas. We can do that ourselves to some degree in praying and confessing before him, but we often need help. We need friends, we need family, we need people we trust. We need a priest to work with us sometimes, to help us to receive God's healing, to get things cleaned up so that our souls work the way that they ought to. Jesus said that what's going on out there, the outside things, can't really make us unclean before God. You know, we can wash those things off. We can get on with our lives. But the things that are inside, those are the things that cause us real trouble because they come out of the heart. They mess up the heart. We need to get them clean before God. We need to let his healing come in. Because if we're filled with his light and his love and that healing, then that comes out of our lives. And frankly, you know, you can be nicely washed up and put on clean clothes, but if your heart is not clean before God, you still don't shine with his light. But if you open up your heart, you open up your life, and you let him do that healing work, then a light shines in you and through you. And even if you're not so nice and clean on the outside, you still look like God's own. And you can share his love, you can share his light, you can share the good news of the gospel. So I invite you to invite him in to do his healing work. If you need some help with that, ask your parish priest, ask your parents, ask people that you love and trust to help you to open things up, to let God's healing, refreshing, cleansing, cleaning, light, and life, and love, and his Spirit get in. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.